All right, if you're gearing up for your exams, you know India's elephant population is a hot topic. Well, get ready because the latest official numbers have basically flipped the script. Today, we are going to dive deep into a huge shift in how India counts its elephants, what the new data really means, and the critical conservation points you absolutely need to have in your notes. So let's get right into it.
We're going to break this down into 6 clear parts. First up, we'll hit that big new number. Then, and this is the really cool part, we'll get into the new science behind it. After that, we'll map out where the elephants are, look at the big threats they're facing, and check out what the government is doing about it. And of course, we'll wrap it all up with a super concise summary just for your exam revision.
Okay, let's jump straight in with the headline number that's got everyone talking, the latest population estimate. So here it is, the new official number. 22,446. This figure from the latest All India Elephant Estimation is the new baseline. You're definitely going to want to commit this one to memory. Now, when you first see that number, it's a little shocking, right? I mean, you look at the 2017 estimate, over 27,000, and now this, it looks like we lost almost 5,000 elephants. So has the population just crashed? Well, hold on. The real story here is actually a lot more complicated than that. And this right here is the absolute key to understanding this whole thing. The report itself makes it very clear. Treat this as a new baseline. Why? Simple. The way we count elephants has changed so much that you just can't compare the old number and the new number side by side. It'd be like comparing apples and oranges. Which brings us to the most important part of this whole discussion, the new way of counting. Understanding this shift is absolutely essential for any kind of analysis. You know, this change is a massive leap forward, scientifically speaking. Before, we relied on things like actually seeing the elephants or counting dung piles, which we now think probably led to overcounting. The new method, it's a whole different ballgame. It's based on the super successful tiger census and uses DNA from dung to pinpoint individual elephants. It is just way, way more accurate. So how does this whole genetic mark recapture thing even work? Well, picture this. Teams go out and collect over 20,000 dung samples from forests. Then, in a lab, they extract DNA to create a unique genetic fingerprint for over 4,000 individual elephants. All that data gets plugged into a fancy statistical model to estimate the total population. The big takeaway here is profound. We've moved from just counting signs of elephants to scientifically identifying individual animals. That's a game changer. Okay, so now we know how we're counting them. Let's look at where they are. This geographical breakdown is a classic exam topic, so pay close attention. So the Western Ghats are without a doubt the main hub. We're talking more than half of India's entire elephant population right there. The Northeast comes in as a strong second. Now, for your exams, you need to remember this order. Western Ghats, Northeast, Shivalik, and then Central. Here's a little trick to lock that in. Just think WNSC. For W, we need strong corridors. Simple, right? WNSC. It'll stick. And if we look state by state, Karnataka is still the king, with over 6,000 elephants. It's followed by Assam and Tamil Nadu. To remember the top 6 states in order, let's try another mnemonic. K-A-T-K-U-O. Just think of it as kings and thrones keep unique orders. One more time. K-A-T-K-U-O. That should help lock in the sequence for you. So why do we care so much? It's because elephants are what we call a keystone species. This is a super important concept in ecology. They're basically ecosystem engineers. You know, they dig for water during droughts, which helps other animals, and they clear paths in the forest that other species use. Basically, the health of the elephant population is a direct sign of the health of the entire forest. So we have a much better idea of the numbers, and we know where the elephants are. But this new data also throws a spotlight on the huge challenges they're up against. This next part is absolutely critical for any means answer on conservation. The threats are, well, there are a lot of them, and they're all connected. Right at the top of the list is habitat loss and fragmentation. Think about it. Traditional elephant corridors are getting squeezed by farms, new railways, and roads. And what happens then? You guessed it, more human-elephant conflict. In central India, mining adds another layer of huge pressure. The result is just tragic. Between 2019 and 2024 alone, 73 elephants were killed by trains. Just trains. So with all these challenges, what's actually being done? let's take a look at India's main game plan for conservation. The big one, the cornerstone of all of India's efforts, is Project Elephant. It was launched way back in 1992. You'll want to remember that year. It's a centrally sponsored scheme, which basically means the central government helps states with money and technical support specifically to protect elephants, their homes, and those super important corridors. And under Project Elephant, there are some really specific things happening. They're surveying high-risk railway tracks to try and prevent those deadly collisions. They're creating a genetic database of captive elephants for better management. And crucially, they're developing regional action plans to tackle conflict and protect those vital corridors we've been talking about.
Okay, wow, we have covered a ton of ground. So let's bring it all together. This next slide is your ultimate cheat sheet, your high-yield summary for revision.
Let's nail down the absolute essentials. The new population number is 22,446. And remember, it's a new baseline. The new method is SAYE, using genetic mark recapture. The top state for elephants? Karnataka. The top habitat zone? The Western Ghats. The biggest threats are habitat fragmentation and conflict. The main policy is Project Elephant from 1992. And finally, their conservation status, which gives them the highest possible legal protection. They are endangered on the IUCN Red List, they're in Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act, and Appendix 1 of CITES.
And that leads us to our final thought. Now that we have this new, much more accurate baseline, the real work can begin. So the big question for policymakers, and something for you to think about for a mains answer, is this. How should India's conservation priorities and its resources change to make sure our national heritage animal is around for the long haul? Definitely something to chew on. That's all for this explainer. Thanks for tuning in.